Attention, Marvel Future Fight fans and subscribers to this channel and this Marvel community. I have a very serious topic to discuss with you guys, so get your coffee, turn down the radio, put the dog outside if they're barking, because I really want to talk to you about whether or not you've logged in for 11 days in a row, because I really want you to get that Dimension chest, to get that random CTP. It might be a CTP of free-to-play, but there's a chance it'll be something amazing like a Rage or a Regen or an Energy or even a Destruction. So hopefully you guys are logging in. But seriously, what I actually want to talk to you guys about actually relates to not only the entire channel, but also a comment that I got recently on today's video, like earlier today. So I do want to shout this out, and I do want to tell you guys that I'm kind of, always looking at the comments, always thinking about the channel, always, it's in my mind, pretty much. It's not necessarily the top priority in my mind at 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, but it comes and goes. It fluctuates. So let's check out this comment. Let's see what we're talking about here. This is Rafael Barbosa de Oliveira, and he said, "Every day I realize how difficult it is for Alex to create a new video. With new content, there is nothing new in the game. It's getting boring and repetitive. In this last update, Netmarble sank the boat a little more." So this is actually a really interesting comment for multiple reasons, okay? So first of all, I want to say I'm not bringing up this comment to sort of boast or like pat myself on the back, like, oh, it's so hard to make a new video. It's not actually that difficult to create a new video. Sometimes I do struggle with coming up with topics, so those can be difficult to sort of manifest. But there's tons of jobs out there. I've had jobs in the past that are much more physically demanding. I've been a bar back at a nightclub. This is definitely not the hardest job I've had, but this is the most enjoyable job I've had, and it's the job that I've had and I continue to have the most passion for, which is related to the rest of his comment. So he says, with new content, I do try to put out new content. I don't want to make repetitive videos about the same thing over and over again, although I did make like 5 Gambit videos back like 8 months ago when he was introduced. And then he says there's nothing new in the game, and this is an interesting idea because it's both true and false. So I want to discuss this a little bit more. And then he says it's getting boring and repetitive. Now this is the first thing I want to address, and essentially we don't have to address this last part here because it's related to getting boring and repetitive, but thank you for the comment, by the way, Raphael. But essentially, whether you feel as though the game is getting boring or repetitive, not just now, but at any given point in time, is really up to you. It's not only a situational thing, but it's a subjective thing, and it's individual. And I actually struggle with that a little bit because I try, not only for my own sake, but also for the community's sake, I try to maintain my entertainment level and maintain my level of engagement with the content that I have. So rather than, saying that I'm bored, saying that things are repetitive, and creating a bunch of sort of negative videos, which maybe I've done too little of, but I'm really trying to find the right balance, because picture it, if I make so many videos talking about the game being boring, repetitive, if I make all these negative videos, it's going to affect certain players. Not everyone, but it's going to affect certain players, and I have to understand, with thousands of people watching each video, I have a bit of a responsibility to try to mitigate that. I don't want to be too extreme to one end or the other. So I try not to sound, some of those YouTubers, every video it's like, hey guys, I'm in the greatest mood ever. I never have a bad mood. I'm always happy. I don't want to be like that. At the same time, on the flip side, I don't want to always be angry or always be depressed or sad, not depressed, but sad or sort of bored or, in a negative frame of mind for the game. I try to keep it pretty even. I do lean a bit more towards the positivity, but for those of you that believe it's just because I work for Netmarble, it's really not. I really just love this game, and I don't think I could make content about this game as much as I do, live stream as much as I do. I couldn't do all of that if I didn't have, a really strong magnetic attraction to this game. I really, really enjoy this game to this day, every day. I like the background music, the sound effects. There's pretty much no detail about this game that I don't have some appreciation for. Even the game modes that I hate, I still find time to appreciate in some form or another, and I will be finding time in the future to make an Alliance Conquest video, despite the fact that this game mode is the bane of my existence. Sorry to my Alliance members that I'm recording a video while you need help in Alliance Conquest, but your time will come, I promise. So that's the first thing that I want to address. I understand that, sometimes the content in the game, or perhaps the update itself, is not that interesting for you, and you may feel a disconnect between my content and how you feel about the game, because you're like, man, this is boring, or I don't really have much to do. Why is Cynicalex having so much fun? there's a variety of reasons why I'm having so much fun. For one, I just really enjoy the game. Whenever I get to play, and for however long I will continue to get to play, and I really love Marvel. So that's really the first thing. The second thing is that because of the channel, I want to maintain some level of cohesion between the community. And so if I create this divide by being very negative or being extremely positive, on the other hand, if I go to one or the other extreme, I feel like I'm going to alienate a lot of people. So I don't want to do that. Now, as far as the rest of it goes, I do admit, and it's not something that I try to hide, that sometimes I don't have really any new content. And this update in particular has shown me that sometimes we get a good update that's bad for me, or that's bad for sort of Marvel Future Fight content creators in general. And this last update, and kind of the last two updates, but more so this last update, is one of those updates. Yeah, we got 3 new uniforms, and we're about to get 2 more. Yeah, we got a brand new game mode. Yeah, we got 3 new characters, and 2 of them at least are quite interesting and unique, and there's different ways of acquiring them and stuff like that. But as far as the actual content goes, very little has changed. Namely because Danger Room, the newest game mode that's been introduced, on the one hand, I actually have to open my reward. On the one hand, right now the game mode is still in beta, and there's quite a few problems with it, connectivity issues. There's frustration with win-loss and the punishment you get for losing, which encourages people not to play very much. And although there is quite a bit of strategy, I don't feel as though the community has taken very much to this game mode. I think, for example, if this game mode gave out CCF, I think there would be, for example, a lot more value in making multiple videos about the Danger Room. But I've already made 2 or 3 videos about the Danger Room, and I can already tell that the community's response to my videos and sort of their engagement with it is starting to decline. And that is partially due to the fact that the rewards are bad in the game mode, there's some connectivity issues, etc. There also is the factor that you're not actually playing with your own characters. And that, I think, does alienate some part of the player base who just doesn't like this kind of content because they don't feel connected to it, so they don't want to watch that content. And I can't blame them. That's really their choice. I'm not going to force anyone to watch my content. Let me just see what my rewards are really quickly here. And so because of this, 100 Angel Bios. I think I got 100 Angel Bios last week, and the week before that I got 100 Phantom X Bios, which is fine for me. But, so yeah, it's a really polarizing situation to be in. It's really sort of bittersweet for me, because on the one hand, as a player, I love the Danger Room, and I think this is great. It's fun, and I'm really, excited to get to play with my Alliance members and get to compete and get to push for high ranks. On the other hand, as a YouTube content creator, I am personally a bit frustrated by this month's update because I don't feel as though there's a lot to cover. The new characters are pretty interesting, but because their acquisition methods are all pretty challenging, I find that there's not a lot of engagement there. Kitty Pryde is quite a big disappointment, despite the fact that she's the most expensive of the new characters. And then when it comes to the new uniforms, Colossus is a big hit, and I was really happy with the response the community had to him. I think he was probably the worst character that got a uniform out of the 5, minus Magic, but he got the biggest upgrade. Even though it's a pretty small upgrade to the static effect of his passive, they still found a way to transform a little used character into a character that's now usable pretty much everywhere in all content, and that's really what you want. You want to create characters that are usable everywhere but not overpowered. But then we had quite a bit of controversy and a bit of disappointment, especially with Emma Frost, but also a little bit with Cyclops as well, and we're also still waiting to see Magic and Namor. So the update does feel like a bit of a letdown from that perspective of uniforms and sort of from characters, in addition to being sort of disjointed because we know that Namor and Magic are coming, but we're all just sort of holding our breath waiting for it to land. And I think that's just sort of, it's just sort of the way that it is. I don't think it's a bad update at all, but I do think that it is an update that is less well received by the community in terms of their interaction with YouTubers. And you might feel the same way, not only towards my content, but towards any other YouTuber's content. And I imagine that most YouTubers, if not all, that are covering this game feel a similar way to how I feel, that it's a great update, but it's not so great of an update from the perspective of content creators. So maybe you're asking yourself the question, well, Cynicalex, if this is not a good update for content creators, it introduced a new game mode, what would be a good update for a content creator? And I really think it comes down to utilizing your entire roster. Something needs to be introduced to the game, whether it's a game mode or it's a new piece of equipment that relies on, that's applicable to your entire roster, that touches on your whole roster. So for example, if we didn't have Uru, and they introduced Uru in the next update. That would be something that would really galvanize the community, because there'd be a really big rift and a gap in knowledge and in information, and that would be where YouTubers such as myself could go in and find that information out. I love finding out new things for you guys. I love doing testing and figuring out what the best options and the best routes are for certain things, and then delivering that information to you guys in subsequent videos. And then from there, you could even test out, okay, this is an offensive build, this is a defensive build for this character, for that character, and so on and so forth, and you literally have that available to 200 plus characters. On the flip side, if it wasn't some sort of new equipment like, you know, obelisks or ISO 8 or uniforms or Uru, then the only other option would be, in my mind, there might be a third option that I'm forgetting, but in my mind, the only other option would be a game mode that utilizes your entire roster. So something along the lines of Shadowland. If Shadowland got like a whole new rework, different rewards, different stages, different stage mechanics, that would really galvanize the community to, okay, you know what, I don't want to fall behind on this new content because I want to get these rewards, so I'm going to have to figure this out. Let's see what other people are doing. And this doesn't just extend to you watching my videos or watching someone else's videos, but this also just extends to you talking to other players in the community, and that conversation starting up. There is some ongoing conversation about Danger Room and sort of the best team strategies in terms of, like, this week, it seems as though Namor Lead, Black Panther, and Sharon Rogers are the best 3 options, which is interesting because I was making fun of Black Panther the last 2 weeks in a row for Danger Room. But beyond that, there's not a lot of that sort of conversation, and there's very little new information that seems to have been added. So it seems like a pretty pancake update where it's pretty shallow on the amount of depth involved and the amount of sort of deeper thinking, but then it's got a lot of new things that's just sort of stretch out like a pancake. So that's basically how I see things, and that's basically how I've reacted recently to a couple of the last updates. The giant boss raid for Galactus was more interesting, and there was more variety there because you have a bunch of different characters that can clear it, but it still unfortunately taps into a lot of the same characters that we've been using for most of the existing content. You know, tier 3 characters, really overpowered, OP, uber strong characters, but it still leaves that, you know, 80% of the characters left in your roster, 80 to 90% sort of left in the dust, where you really never play them unless you're going into Shadowland. And so I think that sort of needs to be looked at, that needs to be analyzed. A new game mode needs to come along to sort of fix that issue, and or an existing game mode needs to be reworked again to fix that issue, because those two things are basically intrinsically connected. Either, you know, people are constantly calling for reworks of old characters. You know, give Ultron a new uniform, give this character this, give that character that. Where's the Vision rework? The reason why people are asking for that is because they want to be able to play those characters in multiple game modes, because right now the game modes that are most valuable to us, i.e. World Boss, Timeline Battle, maybe Alliance Battle, Giant Boss Raid, you can't go into those game modes with any old character. You'll get absolutely curb stomped. You'll just get dunked and destroyed. You have to go in with the super strong characters, and so that does also add a layer of repetitiveness to the game, because I'm using Jean Grey in Giant Boss Raid, I'm using Jean Grey in World Boss, and now I'm using Jean Grey in Timeline Battle. I'm using her everywhere. It's not Marvel Future Fight anymore. It's back to the Jean Grey fight. We've had this conversation in some way before. So I wanted to sort of have that conversation with you guys to let you guys know that, yeah, you know, sometimes I don't really have a lot of content, but I try to come up with new content. I try to be creative with videos, not only because it's something that still entertains me and you know, it ignites my passion, but also because I want to maintain a close relationship with you guys, and I don't want you guys to feel like, you know, I'm bummed out, I'm tired, I'm annoyed, I'm bored with the game, you know, it's not going anywhere. We just need to be patient with certain things. Hopefully new updates either at the end of this year or early next year will address at least one of these two issues, either providing a larger batch of reworks to existing characters that we can then go and use in existing game modes. I mean, I would love to use Ultron against Master Mold and see how that plays out if he was strong enough, or a game mode will be introduced, or another game mode will be reworked to the point where we can bring in those characters even though they're still not as strong, but they will have increased value in those game modes to actually be more powerful and actually be useful and fun to play with. So let me know what you guys think of all of that. Thanks for the comment again, Raphael. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.